This episode of Sports Addict Live, the NHL Show, brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. From now until January the 4th, First Round Collectibles has thousands of sports cards on sale from up to 50% off. With the code Sports Addict, you get an additional 10%. So if the sports card's 20% off, you get it for 30. If it's 30% off, you get it for 40. For 50% off, that's right. With the code Sports Addict, you get it for 60% off. From now until January the 4th, thousands of sports cards on sale. Use the promo code Sports Addict at checkout for an additional 10% off. FirstRoundCollectibles.com. That's the number one, STRoundCollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah. I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they never ever
Welcome, Sports Addict Live, the NHL show. It's Monday, John. People hate Mondays, but we don't because we're back.
Talk about hockey.
We get to talk about hockey. That's right. How you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Pretty good. My team was about 50-50 over the weekend for how I felt. And
yeah.
Sure we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm anxious to talk some hockey with you. A lot went on this weekend in the NHL world.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to get this out of the way. First of all, John and Mark with you. Andre is out today, but he'll be back tomorrow. And yes, I know it's a hockey show, but I'm wearing my Birds jersey, my Birds hat, because the Birds need all the vibes we can get. We're playing tonight, and we just hired Matt Patricia, week 15, as our DC. And I'm glad that we're not talking about the NFL because I could lose my mind. I could lose my mind for an hour talking about that right now. But to the NHL, before we get to bad beats and the games tonight, we'll get into our takeaways from the weekend. Some positive, some negative. John, let's start with you, man. What did you take away from the weekend that was?
So I have a bit of a half glass full, half glass empty take from this weekend, but I'll start with the positive stuff. I'll give a shout out to the Nashville Predators. You mentioned on Friday that going into the weekend, they were on an underrated hot streak. And I think we were all a little bit skeptical about what they could do heading into Friday night's matchup against Carolina. I personally thought it was a good measuring stick game for Nashville to see what they were made of and to, see how things were going to play out for them. Well, Nashville had to overcome some adversity in that game. They were down 5-3 in the second period. And once they were down 5-3, they scored an immediate goal to get to it within one goal. And in the third period, they were resilient. I give them a lot of credit. They came back to tie the game, forced overtime against Carolina in honestly unexpected fashion because it was a high-scoring game. It was 5-5 going into overtime. And Nashville was able to complete the comeback and get a huge overtime victory. And then right after that, a couple of days later not a couple days, sorry. The very next night, Nashville won again in a low-scoring affair against Washington. So I think with those two wins, Nashville is now 13-3 in their last 16 games, and they've also won their last 4. If you want to go even more recent, so I think Nashville's one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. And I talked about pretty early when we first did this podcast that the Western Conference seemed very top heavy with the wild card spots being available for the taking. Well, this winning streak has allowed Nashville to claim one of those wild card spots comfortably. I think they're up by 4 points on the next best team right now, behind them anyway.
Yeah.
So Nashville's gotten themselves into a somewhat comfortable position about 30 games into the season. So I want to give them a shout out and say I think they're one of the most positive stories in the NHL right now. On the flip side, we have to go back to Friday night, the Carolina Hurricanes. I saw a graphic in a hockey group I'm in that had like the most surprising team, most overrated, most disappointing team, and Carolina made the list as the most disappointing team. And I've been defending them all season. I really have. I still think we have yet to see the best of Carolina, but I have to call a spade a spade. They're not playing well right now. And
Yeah.
what concerns me about Carolina is that they're finding ways to lose after I thought they got over the hump on last Tuesday and Thursday, starting a mini winning streak. But that game on Friday, on the flip side, it was a heartbreaking loss for Carolina. I mean, they gave up 6 goals in that game. Definitely not something you want to build on if you are Carolina. And also, again, on the flip side, they're finding unique ways to lose because they lose a high-scoring game on Friday, and then on Sunday, they lose a 2-1 game to Washington, and I believe a shootout. Yeah, so Carolina, they're finding ways to lose. At least this weekend they did. They still have a playoff spot right now, but I think everyone in the hockey world thought they would be better than what they're at about 40% of the way through the season. So Carolina has to take a long, hard look at themselves, and I think we could both agree we thought they would be better than what they are currently.
Oh, I mean, there was people calling them Stanley Cup favorites or at least contenders, right? Going into the season, 100%. And on the other side of it, Nashville, like, man, I'm telling you, man, like that team, they're never out of a game, right? Dud a couple weeks ago, or I guess last weekend against the Leafs. But since then, man, this team's bounced back. They've been playing really well. You're right, 13-3. And I'm 100% with you. And the Carolina thing is just staggering. It's a really, really tough thing to watch. They're one of those teams that you think that they would eventually come around. But I don't know, man. How long are we going to wait, man? It's Christmas.
Yeah, we're about 40% of the way through the year already.
Yeah, man, 100%. Good stuff, John. So my takeaways, there's a few stuff to get into. And some breaking news within the last 2 hours that we'll get into. But first, like you, I'll go to the positive. So the St. Louis Blues fired their coach, Berube. Since then, they beat Ottawa, I believe. And then on Saturday, they were beating Dallas 3-1. Dallas comes back, ties it up 3-3. Any other Blues team from this last year so far would lose that game. And they gave up 3-1 lead, went to overtime, won the game. And that was a different Blues team than we've been watching. Just like a lot more dedicated, a lot more passionate. Now, Jordan Kyrou and Rob Thomas have both been called out by the coach over the last year and a half. When Berube was fired, Jordan Kyrou, who just got signed to a massive deal, he was asked, what do you think about the firing? Typical routine questions. And his response was, no comment, not my coach anymore. Now, we want these athletes to be honest, but then when they're too honest, we give them a hard time about it, right? Berube brought St. Louis their first Stanley Cup ever, those fans did not appreciate what Jordan Kyrou had to say. The next game, every time he touched the puck, they were booing the lights out. Every time. After the game, Jordan Kyrou's asked, how'd that make you feel? Did you notice the boos? He talked for a little bit, and then the kids started crying. Now, I believe he's only 25 years old. He's a young man and certainly very passionate. And, you want to, I don't know, some people would want to maybe make fun of that or whatever. But to me, it's like this kid cares. He loves St. Louis. He just signed an 8-year deal. He's going to be there for a while. And you got the whole stadium booing him. Now, I have somebody close to me. Jordan Kyrou is from around here, and I have somebody close to me who is close to his family and extended family, and by all accounts, Jordan Kyrou is a really nice guy, really good dude. And so that was really hard for me to watch, because it's like, man, like you just kind of say the wrong thing, wrong time, and it like turns a whole fan base, right? Well, since then, the fans are bringing signs like, we love you, Jordan. And he's scored, I believe, 2 goals since then, on the overtime winner on Saturday, shot the puck, rebound, and then so got the assist on the overtime goal. Huge turnaround. And the Andre last week, what did he call it? The dead cat bounce. That was a saying both of us never heard before.
One of the best terms on this show.
100%. So I get what he was saying. This to me feels real. Like watching those last 2 games, and I know one of them was Ottawa, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But to me, like there's something about this team, about the energy that this team has had over the last couple games, that I kind of believe in, and I kind of like. And I don't know, maybe it's just like he said, the dead cat bounce, and there's some energy, new coach, new life. But this kind of feels for real, like losing or beating Dallas 3-1 and then losing that lead. A team like Dallas, you expect to close that out, right? And so for the Blues to hold their own and to win that game, I was extremely impressed with that. I also was very impressed with the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night. 7-0 against Pittsburgh. Now they're my team, so I'll keep this short and sweet because I could go on for a long time about this. But Austin Matthews was out sick. Kyle Dubas coming back to the ACC for the first, or I guess Scotiabank Arena, as it's now called, for the first time since leaving last spring. And they lay a beat down, like 7-0 after, mind you, being down 5-0 to Columbus a few nights before, coming back and then losing that game. And then you have Martin Jones in the net, who was a very good goaltender, but it's been a while since he was that guy, and he played great. I believe they were outshot in that game, if memory serves me correctly. And so for the Leafs to bounce back and to lay the beat down 7-0. Now, that also, it raises a lot of questions that I think we've already had about Pittsburgh. Like, to lose 7-0 Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, Toronto, that's tough. But next time we talk about Pittsburgh, we will talk about that angle of it. Now, the breaking news over the last 2 hours, DJ Smith fired in my nation's capital in Ottawa. So Ottawa is 11-15-0, which kind of surprised me. No overtime losses. 11-15-0. Last place in the conference. 26th in goals allowed. 31st in penalty kill. In the last 4 games, they have allowed 4 or more goals. In those 4 games, they have allowed 19 goals. And this is a conversation we had last week, man, right? They began this road trip and they had to outperform what they have done over the last few weeks or months even for him to survive this road trip. And they were winning on Friday night against Dallas, I believe. My memory is escaping me. Yeah.
The Dallas game was bad.
Yeah. And they lose it. Then yesterday, they get just spanked by Vegas. Like manhandled. I believe 6-2 was the final.
Yeah. Getting spanked by Vegas itself is not a bad thing, but because we've talked about this before. They're arguably the best team in the league. It's just that when that is piled onto everything else that's been going on with Ottawa, particularly in the last 4 games, as you mentioned, with how many goals they've given up, you just know it's not like an isolated event, you know? It's
exactly.
It's like a consistent issue with Ottawa.
And if they didn't give up the lead the night before or the couple nights before, then maybe a different story, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I said this last week, man. I was surprised that he wasn't already fired, to be honest with you. I don't want someone to be fired by any means. To me, it taking this long screams to me that they did not want to do this. Like, they did not want to fire him. I think the players like him. I think the organization likes him. The fans like him when they're winning, which is typically the case. I feel bad for the guy. It's different than, St. Louis, where we talked about this last week, man. Like, St. Louis, a lot of people didn't even think that they were that good. Like, what did you expect from them? Like, you expect them to be like second round, third round of the playoffs? No, nobody really did. But this team had playoff aspirations. They've been rebuilding and they've been retooling. And now, by all accounts, they were ready to go. They added Claude Giroux. They added Tarasenko. Like, by all accounts, this team was ready to roll. And they're a talented roster. The defense is talented. The offense is talented. Korpisalo has been underperforming immensely this year. And so it was needed a change, unfortunately. And it sucked, like, right before Christmas and that whole deal. Like, they're human beings, right? But unfortunately, if you have hopes of making it to the playoffs, if you're Ottawa, you got to do something now, right? You have to.
Yeah, they were just in a bad spot. And I think Mark and I are both people that don't take situations like people losing their jobs in the real world very lightly. Because like you said, at the end of the day, these are human beings, some of them with families that they have to go back to and provide for. So nobody wants to take bread away from people. At the same time, I hate to say, I don't think me and you as sports fans talk about this stuff with tunnel vision. We know the reality of the situation.
Of course.
And at the same time, sports are a brutal business. And I think these guys know that going in, and it's a results oriented business. Unfortunately for Ottawa, they weren't getting the results. I mean, they're in last place in the Eastern Conference. They've given up 19 goals in the last 4 games. And I feel like there was an opening for them to make the playoffs this year. I don't think there's 8 rock solid teams in the Eastern Conference. It may be too little too it might be too little too late now for Ottawa. I mean, they're in last place. They have 22 points. I think this is not insurmountable or anything, but I think they're like 10 or 11 points behind the last
You
team.
got to go on like a run like the Oilers did, right? Like you're
Exactly.
talking,
Or even like Nashville's on now. Yeah.
right? Yeah, and
They need a good
so
run.
yeah, 100%. And so to wrap this up, Jacques Martin that's my best French impersonation. He is back behind the bench of the Ottawa Senators, while Daniel Alfredson, an Ottawa legend and hero, is the assistant coach. So they're going to be taking the reins moving forward. What this feels like to me is you have to hire a GM before you hire the guy, right? So they're putting Jacques Martin, who was hired a couple months ago or back in November, as advisor. And now he'll be behind the bench, which is a place that he's comfortable with. He's been doing that for a long time. So we'll see what happens there. All right. Moving on, as we've done for the last week of our shows, we will continue to do our bad beats of the weekend. John, I'm going to give you the floor first because I have a rant locked and loaded.
Oh boy. I'm looking forward to hear yours, and I feel like it's probably going to top mine. So I'll try to keep this short. So we were just talking about the Ottawa Senators, and my bad beat involves them. I'll go back to Friday's show for this. One of my picks in that show was the Dallas puck line against Ottawa, and I honestly, on that show, I felt very comfortable with it. I wasn't really too concerned. I was going to be surprised if Dallas didn't get the job done. And well, they didn't. It's plain and simple. I mean, Ottawa had a 4-3 lead, a 1-goal lead at the end of the second period. They started that game very well, Ottawa. So I felt like the bet was dead at the end of the second period. But Dallas had a bit of a resurgence there, scoring two goals in the third period. With honestly, Ottawa completely collapsed in the third period, first of all, in that game, which we discussed earlier about that leading to the demise of their head coach. It was a bad loss for Ottawa, but I was paying attention to the score that night, and I'm like, I go from that bet being completely dead to Dallas having a real chance of still covering this, because they scored the 5th goal to take the lead with enough time where you would think there would still be a chance for an empty netter to happen given the situation.
I thought the same thing. Yeah, I thought the same thing.
My bad beat was that Dallas, quite frankly, teased me that whole night. Like I was ready to give up on them and just take the L, but then you bring me back in, give me some hope, only to disappoint me and not get that 6th goal needed. So I didn't have a lot of bad beats this weekend, but that's the one that stands out to me. Dallas just not getting the complete comeback done betting wise.
Yeah, I had the same bet. All right, but there were some different later games that kind of redeemed it for me. All right, my bad beat. This involves your team, John.
Oh man.
So
the Devils hat today.
So yesterday, I had about from 2 p.m. until about 9:30 p.m. I was out driving by myself. I had to drive somewhere, do something quickly, and drive. I was in traffic. I was in the car for basically 7 hours yesterday. I placed a glorious 8-leg parlay that involved football, involved hockey. I'm listening to the radio. I'm going back and forth. Sirius XM for the win. I'm going back and forth between all the games that I've bet on. And as the day goes on, all my bets are absolutely winning. Everything's winning. I bet on the Rams and they cover the spread. I bet on the Texans. I bet all these different things clicking together. I bet on Vancouver. They won. There was a couple other hockey games that were going on around the same time as the Devils, and they all won. The only leg in my 8, maybe even 9 game, now that I think about it, in my 9-game parlay, that was just, a couple dollars to entertain myself as I'm driving around, was your stupid team. And not only do they lose, it's 2-1. I think it was 2-1 going into the third period, no? And I was like, oh, okay, there's some hope here. Like shorthanded goals, or they're on the power play, and the minute their power play is over, that the Ducks score. Like, I don't know about this team right now, man. And I don't want to kick you while you're down, but I don't know. I'm
got spanked last night.
I'm starting to get concerned about your boys, to be honest with you. And same idea as Carolina is you would expect them to turn it around eventually, but I don't know. I'm getting a little bit worried, and that really bummed me out last night, man, because I had a beautiful parlay cooking, and they just threw it all away, John. They threw it all away.
When you told me about the parlay bet last night, I made it a point to not wear my Devils hat on the show today. I didn't want to bring out some PTSD for you, man. I can only say as a Devils fan, I did not want that result to happen, and I apologize that it cost you a big parlay because it looked like you had a nice one going there.
It was cooking, man. It's okay. I brought it up myself. You cannot bring it up all you want. I'll eventually just kick myself. That's okay.
What were the odds on that anyway?
Oh man, I think the overall parlay was like 26-1.
Damn.
Or 27-1. Yeah.
Damn.
It was nothing like insane, but it was a good little parlay.
Pocket money,
nice.
At least.
Yeah, for sure. It would have paid for the gas on my road trip for sure, and then some. It would have paid for the gas. It would have paid for the McDonald's and the Krispy Kreme that I got. It would have covered the whole trip. All right, moving on, but we're not even really moving on because we're talking about one of the teams that was in that game last night. Moving on to that's right. Moving on to Detroit. Anaheim is in Detroit. Detroit is minus 245. The Ducks are plus 200. Minus 1.5 is only plus 100 for Detroit. Plus 1.5 is minus 120 for the Ducks. The over is 6.5. Minus 105 for the over. Minus 115 on the under. All odds on DraftKings. John, where are you going first in this game? What are you thinking?
I feel like both of us are going to be a little emotional about this game, considering what the Ducks did last night. I swear this isn't an emotional pick, though. I really like the Red Wings puck line here. I feel like it's asking a lot for the Ducks to put up another big number after what they did last night. I mean, they were coming off getting spanked on Friday night by the Rangers, and they're still on a road trip throughout all this. This is also going to be the third game in 4 days, I believe, because they played the Rangers on Friday. They played the Devils yesterday. Not much travel between those two teams, but keep in mind, all these games are on the road. I don't like that for the Ducks at all, especially against a team that, quite frankly, can put up a lot of goals. Detroit is 4th in the league in goals per game, and despite Anaheim's performance last night, they are still bottom 4 in the league in goals per game. So I think the schedule combined with the ceiling for offensive firepower, I really like the Red Wings covering the puck line here. And I think it says a lot that the Red Wings side of the puck line is even money on DraftKings right now.
I 100% agree with you. Look, that was an impressive outing by the Ducks last night. The same token, and I'm not like trying to be funny and trying to kick you while you're down there, John, but just being real about it. This has been a problem for the Devils the whole year, right? Keeping pucks out of their net.
100%.
So what's more surprising than winning 5-1 is it not being like 5-4 or like losing 6-5, right? So the fact that it was only 5-1, that was the surprising part of it. But I mean, since November 15th, Ducks are 2-13. Right? They've won twice since the middle of November. Yesterday bothers me from a financial standpoint, but it doesn't change how I feel about the Ducks. I would take that puck line as well. What I will say from a prop angle, Vetrano has 14 goals plus 185 for him to score. Terry got a goal last night. We expect him to be cooking way more than he is, but he's up to 7 goals. Maybe he keeps rolling plus 195. Strome has 14 assists. He is plus 230 to get a helper tonight. Also, the Ducks have the 12th best power play, while Detroit has the 21st best penalty kill. A bit of a long shot bet here, but Vetrano has 8 power play points plus 360 for him to get a power play point. And with the 21st best penalty kill that Detroit has, might be worth a little sprinkle. On the Detroit side of things, DeBrincat has 97 shots, over 3.5, which is just about the average for him, is plus 135. But I think Detroit bounces back huge here and gets the puck line victory. And I'm not like really persuaded by what the Ducks did last night. Moving on to Minnesota and Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's favored, but Minnesota's minus money. And I think that this says a lot. Minnesota started the season 5-13. Since then, they are 7-2, which also coincides, I believe, with the firing of their coach. Another coach firing.
So many this season.
Right. Yeah. I think there's already 4 or 5 so far. In the last 7 games, Pittsburgh is 2-5, and they do not look good. I'm just going to keep this like nice, simple. I think the Wild win this game tonight. They are minus 105 on the money line. Plus 1.5 is minus 258, which is way too juiced. I wish it was better odds, because I would take that in a heartbeat. Pittsburgh minus 1.5 is plus 210. And I think that speaks to the way Pittsburgh's been playing lately. The over is 6. Over is minus 115. Under is minus 105. And I like the Wild money line tonight, man. I just watched Pittsburgh on Saturday night face my team. That team does not look good. Even when they win, it's a little bit dicey. They beat Montreal last week, and it wasn't like the prettiest win by any means. For a lot of that game, they didn't deserve to win it. What I will say is, Crosby and Gensel are basically locks to get a goal like every night right now. Crosby is plus 120 and Gensel is plus 120 as well. Kaprizov has 8 goals. He's plus 130 for the Wild. And Eriksson Ek has 14 goals. He is plus 135. So I like those bets as far as the prop goes. But give me a Wild money line all day, man. What say you?
Well, I have to say, you definitely made a compelling case for the Wild outright, mainly because of the odds. I do agree that it's a little, strange that the Wild are like net minus money on the money line here. I think I was originally leaning Pittsburgh because um I think I was originally leaning Pittsburgh due to the fact that they have they have better goaltending and a better penalty kill this year. This is something I'm really concerned about with the Wilds, that they don't have a great penalty kill in my opinion.
Fair.
But I do think you make a compelling case for the Wild to whatchamacallit, win this game. I'm not normally a prop player like you, but one thing I am tempted about here is maybe a power play bet on the Pittsburgh side of things. I could definitely see that happening here. Like I was just looking at DraftKings while I was talking here. I mean, Crosby and Malkin are plus 145 to get for over half a power play points. I don't know. Like, given how bad the Wild are on a penalty kill, you think that you're more into the props than I am. You think that's worth a shot?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I mean, the only thing that bothers me about it is that the Pens have only started to click on the power play recently. They've been clicking really well the last few games, but they were brutal for the majority of the year. But they have started to click recently, so maybe ride the trend, man. I definitely don't hate it. If you want to get super spicy, Carlson's plus 165, and he runs it from the back end, right? So I don't hate it, John. You got me thinking for sure.
All right. To get back to the teams, I think your take on the line made me steer away from picking Pittsburgh, because going into this, I was leaning that way. I think now I'm going to stay away from these two teams. What I'm starting to like better is perhaps an under bet. The main reason here is I think Pittsburgh doesn't allow a ton of shots on goal. I think they're the better goaltending team than the Wild, and they're coming off getting their butts spanked by your Toronto Maple Leafs. I just do not see them giving up a ton of goals again in this game. I think they're going to remember that 7-0 loss to Toronto and coming out attempting to do all they can to shut down the Wilds. I could very much see this being a low-scoring game, and at 6.5, I feel comfortable taking this under bet. So I think that's what I'm going to go with here.
It is 6.
6, okay.
But I'm with you. It's minus 105. I do too. I agree with you. Both teams, Wild is 22nd in goals per game, and Pittsburgh is 25th. 9th in goals against is Pittsburgh. So I'm 100% with you on the under for Pittsburgh and Minnesota. Moving on, Montreal at Winnipeg. Dude, I love watching this Jets team play hockey, man. It's a little Canadian rivalry. It's in my neck of the woods, not my immediate neck of the woods, but like nationally, it's my neck of the woods. And I love Winnipeg. I'm not even going to go super nerdy on it. Minus 1.5 for Winnipeg all day long. Montreal has actually been a pretty competitive team this year. They sorry, I had it pulled up here. They are 13-4, which for Montreal, that's okay. Like, we expected them to be at the bottom of the league this year, and they're playing respectable hockey. I'm not going to go super like deep on it. I think that the Jets minus 1.5. It is plus 100. So that kind of tells you what the books are thinking. Money line minus 245, plus 200 for the Canadians. Minus 120 is plus 1.5 for Montreal. The over is 6 at minus 105. The under is minus 115. And like I said, I love the Jets minus 1.5 here at plus 100. A couple quick prop bets that I really like. Suzuki and Caulfield for Montreal, both 8 goals, plus 240 for Suzuki, plus 145 for Caulfield. The only thing that concerns me with this is that goaltending for the Jets is really good. And they've allowed the 6th least amount of goals so far. So it's a little bit concerning, but if you're going to pick Montreal goal scorers, those are the 2 that I like. Shoffley and Perfetti and Elders. Those 3 guys, since Connors has gone down, they have been absolutely rolling and carrying this team. Shoffley is plus 135. Elders is plus 150 and Perfetti is plus 215. The last point I will make on this game is the Canadians are on the road for the rest of the year. They do not go back to Montreal. They're beginning a 5-game road trip. So it's the beginning of the road trip. So maybe that doesn't matter. But they're packing their bags and they're not coming home till 2024. So that's interesting. John, what say you, man?
I'm right on with you as well. I like Winnipeg puck line here. I do think it's very telling that it's about even money for the puck line. It seems to be a lot of confidence Winnipeg's gonna take care of business. Mark, I gotta give a shout out to you. You've been on some of these teams that play in Canada, I will say, not to get confused with the Montreal Canadiens here. You've been on some of these points with the teams in Canada this year because you were the one telling Andre and I last week, don't sleep on Winnipeg without Connor. They could still do it. And ever since they got upset against the Sharks, they've gotten the job done. I've been very impressed with how the Jets responded to that. And I think it says a lot about the team as a whole. And statistically, they're just a lot better than Montreal. I mean, they're much higher, and they average 3.34 goals per game. Montreal's a lot lower at 2.7. They allow, I think, 0.8 goals per game fewer than Montreal as well, or right around there. So, and even though they don't have a good penalty kill, neither does Montreal. So, like, everything they're weak in, Montreal is not exactly shining in that category. Montreal doesn't have a great power play this year for me to really worry about this. The point being, I'm right there with you. I like the Winnipeg puck line in tonight's game.
And trust me, so I have friends in Winnipeg. I've never been to a game out there, but my brother has, and I have friends who go to the games regularly. It is one of the smallest rinks in the league. I believe it only has about 15,000, which means when that team is going, that place is wild. And so I expect that tonight. It's Monday, which in Canada, like Monday, it might as well be Saturday. It's just time.
Oh, really?
It's just time to party. Anywhere but Toronto. Anyway, I won't get into it. All right, minus 1.5. Seattle. We're moving right along here. Seattle is in Dallas. Seattle's been playing better, but I'm still not really convinced. Before I go on my rant, John, what do you think about this game tonight?
This one I was kind of torn on. I mean, I'm looking for an underdog to really pick here. I usually like to pick at least one in a day, because usually at least one wins. But I haven't really found a good one to back. I was tempted to take Seattle, but I I gotta be honest, I just don't think I can do it. Like, Dallas is a much better goaltending team than Seattle has been this year. I just think Seattle's too inconsistent. At the end of the day, they can shut an opponent out one night and get blown out the next. They're still a bottom five team in goals allowed in the NHL. Meanwhile, Dallas is goals scored, I should say. Dallas is top six there. But even in goals allowed, these two teams are about even, so I guess you can cancel that out. But I think I just trust Dallas to be like the more consistent team, and they have a much better penalty kill as well for Dallas. In terms of a good bet here, I think this just might be a game I stay away from because the money line is too high. I don't know if I really trust the puck line for Dallas. I could see this being close. It's decent value if you want to touch it. Plus 136 on DraftKings is what I'm looking at here. Looking at the over under, I mean, it's around 6, I think. So
Yeah, I don't like that total really at all.
Mark, to be
It makes
honest,
me
I think this is my stay away game for the Knights. There's just nothing I like here. If I
Yeah,
have to pick a side, I guess I'd take Dallas money line if I have to say a bet, but it's just not something I put on my bet slip.
yeah, I wish that I was like you. Unfortunately, I am a much larger degenerate than you are, and staying away. I would probably recommend that. So okay, so listen. I originally, okay, and just to kind of throw it out there, you see at the bottom of the screen here the odds for the money line. Puck line minus 1.5 for Dallas is plus 136. Plus 1.5 is minus 162. Minus 122 for the over that John mentioned at 6. Plus 102 for the under. Originally, I loved the minus 1.5 for Dallas. I thought Dallas, that game against the Blues on Saturday, they, scratched back, crawled back to tie the game. The game against Ottawa the night before, they were losing that game by multiple goals. They came back, and I just thought, listen, Dallas has not been playing their game the last few nights, and I think they come out, and I think they roll minus 1.5. However, what scares me about that is Dallas started the season 11-4. Since then, they are 6-8, and there's some overtime losses mixed in there with that loss total. But since then, they are 2 games below 500. So the consistency hasn't really been there, and it scares me off of the minus 1.5 a little bit. I have a couple hours to think about it. I do think that, like you said, if I have to trust one team, I think the last couple games for Dallas, that locker room is super solid, and I can see them all looking at each other being like, boys, we got to smarten up. Let's lay a beat down tonight. And I can see that happening. I really like some props in this game. I believe it was Friday when they played Ottawa Friday, right? Or was that Thursday? I think it was Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because that was your bad beat. So, sorry to bring that up, John, again. I told everybody Pavelski, Robertson, Hintz, power play points. I told you the odds. They nailed that on one power play goal. All 3 of them got a point. 22nd best, which is what I guess the 10th worst penalty kill in the league. The Kraken owns that. Dallas has the 8th best power play in the league. Pavelski, 9 power play points. He's plus 200. Robertson, 11 power play points. He's plus 210. Hintz has 9 power play points. He's plus 325. All these guys are on that number 1 power play, and they all hit on 1 power play goal on Friday night. And if you're giving me plus 325 for Hintz, 9 power play points against the 22nd best penalty kill, I mean, I'm taking that all day long. I absolutely love the power play odds for power play points for Dallas. Just kind of a side note to wrap this up. Pavelski, Robertson, Hintz, Duchesne, Seguin, Ben, Marchment, Johnston. They all have 10 plus assists, and they're all plus money. So look at those stats. Check out their odds. They're all plus money, and I think that's really good value. I'm almost talking myself into the over. I'm almost talking myself into like a 5-2 game, but I'm going to hold the horses. But those power play point props, I really like for this team. I really do.
You're definitely making me tempted on the power play stuff, especially considering how bad Seattle's penalty kill is.
Listen, man, you work hard for your money, man. You might as well triple it. You know what I mean?
I like the way you
All
think.
right. My wife doesn't. I'll make that very clear. My wife does not like the way I think. All right, moving on to the last game of the night. And Andre, too bad he's not here because his favorite team, I don't know if he's watching or he will be later, and his favorite team in the NHL, the Calgary Flames, are hosting the Florida. Poor guy's not even here to defend himself. They're hosting the Florida Panthers, who are wrapping up their Western road trip. They are 2-2 on this trip. Extremely convincing game against the Oilers on Saturday night. And that was the letdown that we were kind of waiting for with that team, right? So 4 games ago, Florida scored 5 goals against Columbus. And then 2 straight games against Seattle and Vancouver, they scored 0 goals. Then on Saturday, they score 5 goals again. What are we going to get tonight to wrap up this trip? It's Calgary. Calgary loves to give up goals, but they've been scoring quite a bit lately too. Calgary is plus 102 at home. Florida is minus 122, and I think that's right. I do. You can talk me into the Panthers money line. I understand they've been on a long road trip. It's the end. I just can't put money on this Calgary team. I just can't. The over is 6.5 plus 102 for the over. I don't hate that. Where was I? Minus 1.5 for Florida, plus 195, plus 1.5 for Calgary is minus 238. A couple quick stats, and I believe we talked about this last week. Since November 27th, the Flames have 7 one-score games out of 10 games. Mm-hmm. They are 3-4 in those. 60-minute line to draw is plus 350, which I don't hate for Calgary. It's a pretty long shot bet. I wish that I was getting, even though plus like 350 is pretty good odds, but I wish I was getting a little bit nicer. But that's where I'm at. Reinhart, 17 goals. He's plus 160. Verhaeghe has 15 goals. He's plus 155. Verhaeghe also has 107 shots at over 3.5 shots. You're getting plus 110. So those are my favorite props of the night. Probably Panthers money line. The end of the road trip does scare me, but they're playing Calgary, so I'm a little bit less scared. But I kind of like that 60-minute line, man. Plus 350 draw. I don't hate it. What do you see in this game?
I think this is my upset of the night. I like Calgary to win outright.
Really? Okay, talk to me.
I've been looking. I said earlier in the show, I usually like to look for one underdog to win a game, and I think this is the line that stands out most to me, that makes me most comfortable picking an underdog. Because to
Okay.
me, I don't fully agree with you about the line read. To me, this reads like Florida should be bigger favorites with the way these two are playing right now. Calgary just snapped a 4-game losing streak on Saturday against Tampa Bay, but before that, they had lost 4 games in a row. They, as you said, they've been in a lot of 1-goal games. I don't think Calgary should be this close if the sports books really believe Florida is going to win this game. Like, I
That's
read this
fair.
as Florida should be bigger favorites, and the fact that they're not says something to me. I do like Calgary to win this game outright. And I tell you, now that you mentioned, I didn't know about the 60-minute line going into this. Now that you mention it, I am really, really tempted to recommend that line.
The
Because, like,
overtime or like Calgary 60-minute?
Calgary.
Okay. What is it
Yeah.
at now?
Was that the one you were talking about at plus 350? Or did I miss?
No,
Maybe I misheard that.
that's uh draw to go to
Oh, okay.
overtime. Yeah, to go to overtime plus 350. Here I
My
got it
bad.
here.
I misheard you.
All good. Plus 145
Still
for
tempted.
Calgary. Yeah. But so I don't know, maybe I'm misreading this, John. You can tell me, like, you have a good sense for this. Florida is plus 125 to win in 60 minutes, and Calgary is plus 145 to win 60 minutes. I know that overtime is plus 350, but I feel like those two odds for Florida to win 60, Calgary to win, I think that's telling us that the books think this might go to overtime, no?
Yeah, the books seem to have this as a very tight game that maybe they believe Florida would squeak out, but not confidently. Yeah, I mean, my apologies before I completely misheard that.
Oh,
But
you're good. Nah,
now,
man, you're good.
now that I'm understanding this better, like the, the 60-minute draw line is plus 350. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a off read there to think this game might head into overtime. I think I like Calgary to win the game outright. Whether I would go 60 minutes or just the general money line, I'm still a bit torn. But I both these teams average exactly 3 goals a game. Florida's been on a long road trip. I mean, they've gone from Columbus to the Northwest with Seattle and Vancouver. Now they're in Alberta. Like, this is a long road trip. I could definitely see them slipping here. I think I'd take a chance on Calgary tonight.
Love it, man. Love it. That's pretty much the only thing that we did not agree on tonight. For the most part, we're lockstep, but a little difference of opinion. I love it. You guys can decide for yourselves. All right, moving on to our best bets. Before we do hit our best bets, I want to remind you that the NHL Show on Sports Addict Live is brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Until January the 4th, they have thousands of sports cards on sale up to 50% off. You heard me right. Thousands. Go there at checkout, add the code Sports Addict, extra 10% off. As I said at the beginning of the show, if it's 20%, you get it for 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60. And if it's not on sale, then you get it for 10% off. Go to first round collectibles.com and find your heroes. First Round Collectibles. As for our best bets, Andre, like we said, he couldn't be here today. He'll be back tomorrow. He told us that his best bet is the Jets minus 1.5 against the Canadians, which we both absolutely agree with. And if he didn't say it, I was going to say it.
Yeah.
And you might have even said it. So,
Andre, we're right there with you, man.
That's right. His best bet is minus 1.5, and I love it. What's your best bet, John?
So since we got Andre's best bet out of the way, which I think we're both very much on the same page on
Oh
there,
yeah, big time.
I think I have to go with the other puck line available tonight's. I think this was always my first choice, but the Jets would have been my second choice for sure. But my best bet of the night, I think, is the Detroit puck line. Similar to the Jets, both of them are about even money for -1.5. I absolutely love it for Detroit. And I swear this is not an emotional pick. Like I said before, I really do think this is asking a lot of Anaheim to come up against a high scoring team like Detroit in the third game in 4 nights of a road trip. And the Devils are typically a track meet team. I think they got a break with how that played out for Anaheim. I just
Sure.
wouldn't expect a big night like that again from the Ducks. Give me Detroit puck line all day.
Absolutely love it. So we have Detroit puck line, we have Winnipeg puck line, and I think out of the 3 remaining games, I was gonna go power play point from the Dallas side, but I've been getting a little bit wild with the props on the best bets. We're here for absolute 100% 100% guarantees. It's a little bit aggressive, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna stay away from the prop bets tonight, and I'm gonna go with the Wild, which I don't know. 2 months ago, you're telling me that I'm gonna bet like the Wild over Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I'm probably not believing you, but I am. Minnesota money line -1.5. I just think Pittsburgh's kind of lost right now. They've won 2 out of their last 7 games. They don't look great, even when they win. And I think this Minnesota, and I'll be the first to say it, when they changed coaches, I didn't believe in the hype. I thought it didn't matter. I thought that the roster was very uneven, not very deep. But their goaltending's come alive, and this team's been rolling. And I have 2 of their players on my fantasy roster, and after starting my fantasy year 1-7, I'm on a 2-game winning streak. I'm 3-7, and I'm feeling great. So I'm picking Minnesota -1.5. To parlay that, you're getting +680 if you parlay that. I definitely recommend the single bets, but if you want to get spicy, you want to parlay it, +680. All right, John, good show today, man. Is there anything that I missed? Anything else you want to touch on?
Just one more thing. I think this is a rare prop bet feeling from me. I kind of like the Crosby power play point thing. I'm talking myself into that.
What were the odds on that again?
I think +145.
Love it. As somebody who looks at these props in depth pretty much every day, the Crosby props have been money this year. Like he's your only sure thing when it comes to this Pittsburgh team this year.
Yeah, I like the way he's playing right now. I feel like against the Wild, it's just worth a look.
Look at you, man. Love it.
You're rubbing off on me, man.
I know. It's probably not a good thing. I apologize. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching or listening. If you have that YouTube premium, you turn off, like you lock the screen, you're just listening. We appreciate that. We will be back tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. EST. Andre will be back, and hopefully we'll be counting some money. Good luck on your bets, and we will see you next time.